Welcome to this explainer. Okay, today we're looking at a completely visually stunning transformation. If you've ever had to deal with a neglected, totally algae-ridden pool, man, you know exactly the kind of nightmare it can be to get it back to normal. It's incredibly satisfying to watch. And today we're going to break down exactly how a professional tackles this massive mess, step by step, drawing directly from our source material. Let's get right into it. Okay, let's dive into this. How in the world do you save a completely green pool in August? Because that is exactly the disastrous state our professional walked into on a late summer Monday. Opening a pool this late in the season, that's just asking for a massive headache, and the water in this case was practically a swamp. Imagine walking into a backyard and seeing nothing but this thick green soup where clear water should be. It's a tremendous challenge to face right out of the gate. Which brings us to the professional's initial reaction. Upon arriving at the site, he basically just noted, quote, "It is August, so wasn't surprising it was looking like this," end quote. I mean, there's a real sense of professional readiness here, right? When you wait literally all the way until August to pull the cover off your pool, you are opening up a literal science experiment. The stakes are incredibly high when you're fighting algae growth right in the peak of summer. But this pro knew exactly what he was walking into. He absolutely wasn't caught off guard by the massive green problem staring back at him. Let's move to and see how this builds, because you really need a rock-solid chemical prep phase to tackle this before you even touch a net. Step 1, you've got to get the pool running just to circulate the water. Step 2, you shock and flock it. Basically, you hit the water with heavy chemicals to kill off the overgrowth, and then you use a flocculant. And let me tell you, flocculant is an absolute game changer for green pools. It aggressively binds to all those tiny floating algae particles, forcing them to clump together into this heavy mass. Then, step 3, patience. You just wait a few days to let the chemistry do its thing. And finally, step 4, all that dead debris sinks to the very bottom. It creates this gross layer of sludge, but it leaves the water above it clear enough to actually work with. So the crucial point is this technique right here. It's really what separates the experts from the amateurs. If you skip brushing the pool before adding your chemicals, well, the water might clear up from the shock and flock, but the algae, it stays stubbornly stuck to the walls. That means you're going to have to do the back-breaking work later anyway. But if you brush the entire surface first, all that algae loosens up and sinks beautifully to the floor. When it all finally settles down, it sets you up for an incredibly smooth, perfect vacuum cleanup. Doing this early literally makes all the difference. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the mechanical extraction. Once that sludge has settled, it's time for the heavy lifting. Using a dedicated Hayward pump, he vacuums everything straight down the drain. He isn't messing around here. It's pure, direct extraction out of the pool, so none of that heavy mess goes through the pool's normal filter and clogs up the whole system. And by tackling the edges first, he can create these perfectly satisfying straight lines going across the floor as he hoovers up all that sunken mess. Working his way through that heavy sludge, he actually had a rather humorous realization about his own efficiency. Watching the time-lapse source footage of his own rapid progress, he joked, quote, "If I can work this quick like all the time, it'd be, pretty good for me money-wise." He's pointing out that if he could actually maintain that superhuman time-lapse speed in real life, he'd be making an absolute killing financially. It's a really funny, self-aware nod to how fast things look on camera versus the physical, sweaty reality of the job. But it wasn't just physical labor out there. There are some highly relatable behind-the-scenes struggles happening here that show the true reality of modern tradesmen working as content creators. While operating the vacuum, he's constantly checking his camera because, oops, he forgot his charger and is running on pure battery power. He was literally just hoping it wouldn't die before the job was done. On top of that stress, he was simultaneously recording alternate content for TikTok. It really shows the daily hustle of juggling hard manual labor and digital content creation all at once. So once that heavy vacuuming is finally completed, the meticulous final stages begin. It's actually a very methodical routine to wrap things up. First, pack away the heavy vacuum hose and clear the area. Then, take a well-deserved moment for a quick drink, which is absolutely crucial when you're working that hard outside. And then, head back to the van to grab the net. This really breaks down the unglamorous, realistic workflow of finishing out the heavy labor before you can move on to the fine detailing. And this brilliantly illustrates that even after you vacuum up that heavy sludge, the pool isn't entirely clear yet. He meticulously nets out lots of little bits that you honestly can't even easily see on the video. We are talking about gross little elements here. Dead flies, mosquitoes that are just floating around, plus scooping out a few stubborn twigs resting on the bottom. It just emphasizes the absolute thoroughness required to truly finish a job like this properly.
Looking back at the timeline, the whole chronological arc is just incredibly satisfying. Think about it. On Monday, this pool was a literal green, disastrous swamp. By midweek, the sunken mess was treated, clumped together, and completely ready to be vacuumed. And just a few days after that, the water was looking pristine and clear. That is a massive turnaround from start to finish.
With the heavy lifting finally over and the pool completely transformed, our pro wrapped up the work with his own totally unique signature sign-off. He says, quote, "Holly your boy for the ball work," end quote. It's his personal, enthusiastic stamp of a job well done. The rescue is totally complete, and the pool is finally ready to actually enjoy.
Taking all this in, we really have to ask, is your pool ready for the summer? Or is it time to just call the pool guy? Seeing the sheer amount of chemical knowledge, the heavy equipment, and the methodical steps that go into rescuing a neglected green pool, it really puts home maintenance into perspective, doesn't it? Whether you decide to tackle it yourself by following these structured steps or hand it off to a pro to save yourself the headache, staying ahead of the mess is everything. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. I hope this breakdown empowered you with a clear understanding of the whole process. Keep learning, and I'll see you next time.